I found a rusted metal object at an estate sale that nobody could identify, not even the seller. It turned out to be a tool that solved an everyday problem for over a century, and it's probably sitting in your garage, unrecognized. Let's figure out what it is. Hey, welcome back to Yesteryear Secrets. If you've ever dug through a box at an estate sale or flea market and found some strange piece of metal, oddly shaped, clearly old, clearly made for a purpose, but with absolutely no obvious clue what that purpose was, you already know that feeling. Half curiosity, half frustration. Today I'm doing something a little different. I'm walking you through the actual method, the same one antique tool collectors and museum curators use, to identify a mystery tool from scratch. And then I'm going to show you how to bring it back to working condition once you know what it is. This isn't guesswork. There's a real system here, and once you know it, you'll start spotting clues on old tools you never noticed before. Why these tools become mysteries in the first place. Most mystery tools aren't actually rare or exotic. They're usually specialized single-purpose tools from an era when almost every trade had its own dedicated equipment, and when a lot of manufacturing, farming, and household work has since been replaced by electric tools or entirely different processes. A tool for stripping corn, crimping tin, testing eggs for freshness, or setting saw teeth used to be common in nearly every home or workshop. Now that the job itself has disappeared or been mechanized, the tool that did it becomes unrecognizable within 2 or 3 generations. That's really the heart of it. It's not that the tool is rare, it's that the daily task it solved is gone, and the tool outlived the memory of the job. Step 1. Look for marks before anything else. Before you do any research online, examine the tool itself closely, ideally with a magnifying glass or your phone's zoomed-in camera. You're looking for 4 things. First, maker's marks or stamped names, usually on a flat section of metal. Even worn-down stamps can sometimes be read by rubbing the area lightly with pencil graphite over a thin sheet of paper, an old trick from grave rubbing that works just as well on metal stamps. Second, patent numbers or patent dates, often stamped as PAT followed by a date or a number. This is huge because U.S. patent records going back to the 1800s are fully searchable online, and a patent number can take you directly to the original drawing and description of exactly what the tool does. Third, material and construction clues. Cast iron versus forged steel, wood types used in handles, the type of fasteners, rivets versus screws versus welds, all of these narrow down the era. Machine-cut screws with uniform slots generally point to post-1850s manufacturing, while hand-forged, irregular elements suggest something older. Fourth, wear patterns. Look at exactly where the tool shows the most wear, shine, or smoothing. That tells you where a hand gripped it, where it contacted material repeatedly, and where force was applied, which is often the biggest clue to its actual function. Step 2. Search smart, not generic. Once you've gathered those details, avoid the trap of just typing, "What is this old tool?" into a search engine, since that returns a flood of unrelated results. Instead, search using the specific details you found. If you have a patent number, search that number directly through the USPTO's full text and image search, or Google Patents, both of which are free and let you search patents back into the 1800s. If you have a maker's name, search that name alongside words like antique tool identification or trade catalog, since a lot of manufacturers' original sales catalogs have been scanned and posted by historical societies and collector groups. If you don't have a name or number, describe the tool by shape and likely trade instead of guessing at its name. For example, rather than searching weird metal hook thing, search antique tool, curved hook wood handle, leather trade, describing what material it seems designed to work on. Trade-specific forums exist for nearly every historical occupation. Cobblers, coopers, blacksmiths, wheelwrights, farriers, and members of those communities can often identify a tool from a photo in minutes because they've seen the entire toolkit of that trade before. Step 3. Use the community, not just search engines. This is honestly the fastest method and the one collectors rely on most. There are dedicated online communities, forums, and social media groups built entirely around identifying unknown antique tools, and they're active every single day. Post clear photos from multiple angles, including any marks you found, along with rough measurements and where you acquired it, an estate sale, an old farm, a specific region. Since geography can be a real clue too, these communities exist because this exact problem, a tool nobody recognizes, comes up constantly, and there are people who have made it their hobby to know obscure trade tools inside and out. It's not unusual to post a photo and get a confident, correct identification within an hour, complete with the tool's original name, trade, approximate date, and sometimes even its current collector value. Step 4. Once you know what it is, restore it properly. Once you've identified the tool, the restoration approach depends heavily on whether it has collector value or is purely for use. This distinction matters more than most people realize. If the tool turns out to be rare or historically significant, resist the urge to fully restore it. Serious collectors generally prefer stabilization over restoration, cleaning off active rust, applying a protective oil and leaving the original patina and finish intact, because a heavily refinished antique tool can actually lose a significant portion of its collector value compared to one left in honest original condition. If the tool is common, and most mystery tools are more common than they first appear, then go ahead and restore it fully for use. That means the same rust removal and sharpening principles I've covered in other videos. A vinegar or electrolysis soak for rust, fine steel wool to clean the surface, and if it has an edge, proper sharpening on a stone, followed by a strop. Wooden handles usually just need a light sanding and a coat of linseed oil to bring them back. Either way, once you know what the tool is and how it was meant to be used, actually try using it for its original purpose if you can. There's something genuinely satisfying about using a 150-year-old tool exactly the way it was designed to be used, doing a job it was purpose-built for, long after the trade itself has mostly disappeared. Is it actually worth anything? Once you know what the tool is, it's worth doing a quick value check before you decide whether to restore it, use it, or sell it. The easiest method is searching sold listings, not active ones, on sites like eBay, since asking prices mean nothing but completed sales show what someone actually paid. Filter for sold or completed listings and search the tool's actual name, the one you just identified, along with the maker's name, if you found one. Etsy and specialty auction houses that focus on tools and Americana are also worth checking, especially for anything with a clear maker's mark or an unusual patent. As a rough rule, common tools in rough shape are usually worth very little, $10 to $20 at most, while rare, well-marked, or unusually early examples in good condition can bring hundreds. If you're ever unsure, most collector forums will happily give you a value opinion alongside the identification, so it's worth asking both questions at once. A few examples to get you started. To give you a head start, a few commonly misidentified tools worth knowing. A small metal device with a spring-loaded clamp and a hole was very likely an egg candler bracket or a wire stretcher used in fencing. A flat iron paddle with a wooden handle and a slightly curved face was probably a butter paddle or laundry bat used for beating dirt out of fabric before washing machines existed. A long-handled tool with a crescent-shaped blade was most likely a corn or tobacco knife used for harvesting stalks by hand. And a small toothed wheel on a wooden handle, often mistaken for a pizza cutter, was frequently a pastry jagger or a leather-working tool used for marking stitch lines. These show up constantly at estate sales, completely misunderstood, and now you'll recognize the pattern. So next time you come across a strange piece of old metal with no obvious purpose, remember the process. Marks first, then smart, specific searches, then the collector community if you're still stuck, and finally the right restoration approach once you actually know what you're holding. If you've got a mystery tool sitting in your garage right now, post a photo in the comments. I'd love to try to help identify it, and I bet other people watching will chime in too. If you enjoyed this, go back and watch my videos on old-fashioned rust removal and hand sharpening, since you'll need both once you figure out what you found. Subscribe for more of this every week, and I'll see you in the next one.